How to simplify brackets. So let's say, for example, you have a monomial number multiplying with a binomial number. So now, how can you simplify this problem? You're going to say whatever that is outside the bracket will multiply with everything that is inside the bracket. So you're going to first say 2y will multiply with y, and then 2y will multiply with 4 again. So the answer to this problem is going to be 2y multiplied by y, which is going to give us 2y squared. And then again 2y multiplied by 4, that is going to give us what? 8y. So this is how you simplify a monomial multiplying a binomial. So now, how would you simplify two monomials? If we have y plus 5 multiplying with y plus 2. So the very same principle will apply to say everything on this bracket will multiply with everything that is on the other side of the bracket. So now y will first multiply with y, and then it will multiply with 2. After that, 5 will go and multiply with y, and then 5 will multiply with 2. So this will simplify to be what? Remember, y will multiply with y first, and that will give us y squared. And therefore, y will multiply with 2, and that will give us 2y. And now we move to 5 to say 5 will multiply with y. This is going to give us 5y. And then 5 will multiply with 2, which will give us 10. So now, after we have multiplied the two binomials, we will see that we have like terms. So like terms are terms that have the same variables. So in this case, we have y and y. So we can add the like terms. So we're going to say we have y squared, and 2y plus 5y is going to give us 7y, and then we have plus 10. So this will be the solution when you multiply two binomials. So let us look at another example where we have two binomials. So you must be careful with the signs. If we have 3k minus 2 multiplied with k plus 6, what is going to happen is that we always say whatever on this side of the bracket will multiply with everything on the other side. So 3 will multiply with k, and therefore 3k will multiply with 6. Then we move again to say negative 2 will multiply with k, and negative 2 will multiply with 6. So you must be careful that this value here is negative 2. You must take the sign into consideration. So we're going to start to say now, 3k multiplied by k, this will give us 3k squared. And then 3k multiplied by 6, that is going to give us how much? 3 multiplied by 6, that is giving us 18. So you're going to have 18k. Then you're going to say negative 2 multiplied by k, that is going to give us negative 2k. And then negative 2 multiplied by positive 6, that is going to give us negative 12. So you must be careful when you multiply different signs. So if you just put negative 2 and positive 6 in the calculator, it will automatically give you the answer with a negative number. But you must be careful that the number that you have is negative multiplying with a positive number. So now when we add this up, we can see that we have the like terms. So we're going to have what? We're going to have 3k squared, and then we say 18k minus 2 is going to give us 16k, and then we have minus 12. So this will be the solution to the problem. So now we can also be given two binomials that multiply in this format. For example, we have x minus 6 all to the power of 2. So remember, if something is raised to the power of an exponent, that means it's that thing multiplied by itself, the number of exponents. So in this case, we only have the exponent of 2. Therefore, we're going to open two brackets. So we're going to say we have x minus 6 multiplying with x minus 6. So now for us to simplify this, we know everything on the other side of the bracket will multiply with everything on the other side. So the x will multiply with x, and the x will multiply with negative 6. After that, the negative 6 will multiply with x, and the negative 6 will multiply with the negative 6. So we're going to first start to say now x multiplied by x, that is going to give us x squared. And then x multiplied by negative 6. Be careful of the signs. So this is going to be negative 6x. So now negative 6 multiplied by x, that is going to be negative 6x. And then negative 6 multiplied by negative 6, that is going to be positive 36. And again, be careful of the signs. When negative and negative multiplies, we get a positive answer. So now to add this, you look at the like terms. So we have this as the like terms. So we are going to have what? X squared. And then negative 6 minus 6 is going to be negative 12x. Then we have plus 36. So that is how we will solve that problem. So now let us move on and look at another problem. To say, for example, we are having x minus 2 into x plus 2. So the same principle will apply to say now this will multiply with the first number and it will also multiply with the second number. But after that, the negative 2 will multiply with x and the negative 2 will multiply with the positive 2. So we're going to say our solution is what? X multiplied by x, that is going to give us x squared. Then x multiplied by positive 2, that is going to give us positive x. And then negative 2 multiplied by x, that is going to give us negative 2x. And then lastly, negative 2 multiplied by positive 2, that is going to give us negative 4. So now, if we look at our last like terms here, we have positive 2 and negative 2x. So these are going to cancel out and give us 0 because 2 minus 2 is 0. Therefore, what we are left with is x squared minus 4. And then this is called a difference of two squares. But you will see this when we discuss factorizing. So now let's say, for example, we have also two binomials multiplying, but now we are having an extra number outside. For example, we have negative into 7 minus x all into 7 plus x. So now what is happening is that we have multiplication between the negative and the first bracket here. And then you also have the multiplication between what? Between the two binomials. So now the first thing that you do is that you deal with one multiplication first. And then after that, you're going to deal with the other multiplication. So now you're going to say this is equals to. When you deal with the first multiplication, you must make sure your answer is inside the bracket. So this is going to be what? Remember, what is outside will multiply with everything inside. So it's going to be negative multiplied by 7. That's going to be negative 7. And therefore, negative multiplied by negative x, that is going to be positive x. And then you close the bracket, you put the multiplication, and then you open the brackets that you had. So this is 7 plus x. And then when you have something like this, that means you're going to do what? You're going to go back and do the very same thing. To say now everything on this side will multiply with everything on the other side. So you're going to start with negative 7 by 7. And then you say negative 7 by x. And then you move to say now x by 7. Then x by x. So this will simplify to be what? Negative 7 multiplied by positive 7. That is going to give us negative 49. And then you say negative 7 multiplied by x. That is going to give us negative 7x. Then you say now x multiplied by 7, that is going to give us positive 7x. And then lastly, x multiplied by x, that is going to give us positive x squared. So now we're going to do what? We're going to simplify. But remember, we're going to look for the like terms. We have these like terms here. We have negative 7 plus 7. So remember now, these are the same numbers with different signs. So they're going to cancel out and become a 0. So the answer that we have is what? It's negative 49 plus x squared. But normally when we write our answers, we leave what? We start with a variable and then we end with a constant. So this thing is the same thing as what? As x squared minus 49. So let us move on and look at if we want to multiply a trinomial and a binomial. So a trinomial is 3 numbers. So if we have negative 2y squared minus 4y plus 11 all multiplied by 5y minus 12. So the same principle is going to apply. Remember, everything on this side of the bracket will multiply with everything on the other side of the bracket. So but now you need to do that one by one. So you're going to say now, the first negative 2y is going to multiply with the 5y. And then it is also going to multiply with the negative 12. So now you have to move to the second term, which is negative 4y will multiply with 5y. And then also the negative 4y will multiply with the negative 12. After that, you move to the next term, which is 11 here. So 11 will multiply with what? With the 5y. And then also again, 11 will multiply with the negative 12. So everything on this side multiplies with everything on that side. So now let us start to multiply. So we're going to say what? Negative 2y squared multiplied by 5y. So remember, you say negative 2 multiplied by 5, that is going to give us negative 10. But now y squared multiplied by y, that is going to give us y cubed. So now we say again, this negative 2y is going to multiply with the negative 12. So negative 2 multiplied by negative 12, that is going to give us positive 24y squared. So now we are done with what? With the first term, which is negative 2y. So we have to move now to the second term, which is 4y. So the 4y, negative 4y, is going to multiply with the 5y. So negative 4 by 5 is going to give us negative 20. And then now we have y multiplied by y, which is going to be y squared. So now the negative 4 again will also move and multiply with the negative 12. So now if we say negative 4 multiplied by negative 12, that is going to give us positive 48. But remember, we still have y here, so it's going to be positive 48y. So now we have to move to the last term, which is 11. So the 11 is going to multiply with 5. So we're going to say 11 multiplied by 5y, that is going to give us positive 55y. And then lastly, 11 will multiply with the negative 12. So 11 multiplied with the negative 12, that is going to give us negative 132. So that is how everything is simplified. But now remember, after you simplify, you have to group your like terms so that you can simplify even further. So remember, the like terms are numbers that have the same variable. Looking at this here, they both have y squared. Then also looking at this here, they both have y. So that means we can add those numbers that have what? Like terms. So we're going to drop down this thing, which is negative 10y cubed. And then we're going to say what? Positive 24 minus 20, which is going to give us positive 4y squared, because those are like terms. Then we're going to say what? 48 plus 55, which is going to give us what? 103y, because these are like terms. We add them. And then lastly, we have a constant, which is negative 132. So that is how we simplify a trinomial with a binomial. So now let us look at the very same problem, but now we are having a binomial multiplying a trinomial. Feel free to pause the video and try the problem yourself before you can look at the answer. So let's say we have 10y plus 3 all multiplied by negative 2y squared minus 11y plus 2. So the very same application will happen to say now everything on this side of the bracket will multiply with everything on the other side of the bracket. So we're going to start to say now the 10y will multiply with the negative 2y squared. And then also the 10y will move and multiply with what? With the negative 11y. But now the numbers are not yet done. So also the 10y will move again and multiply with the last term, which is positive 2. So after you are done with the 10y, you now start to move with the 3 to say now 3 will multiply with what? With the negative 2y squared. And then 3 will multiply again with the negative 11y. And then lastly, 3 will multiply with the positive 2. So let us try to multiply that out. So we're going to say 10y multiplied by negative 2y squared. Remember, it's going to be 10 multiplied by negative 2, which is going to give us negative 20. But now we have y and y squared. That is going to give us y cubed. So we're going to say now 10 multiplied by what? By negative 11. So now 10 multiplied by negative 11 is going to give us how much? Negative 110. But now we have y multiplying with y, so that is going to be y squared. So we move now to the last value to say now 10y multiplied by 2. So 10y multiplied by 2, that is going to give us 20y. Now we are done with the 10. So we start to move to 3 to say now 3 multiplied by what? By negative 2y squared. This is going to give us negative 6y squared. And therefore the 3 again will multiply with the negative 11y. So the negative 11y will become what? Will become negative 33y. So now the 3 will lastly multiply with the positive 2, which is going to give us 3 multiplied by 2, which is 6. So after we do this, we add our like terms. So but now what are the like terms? We have to group them first to say now this is y squared here and this is y squared there. So we're going to add the ones that have the same variables, y squared with y squared, and then also we're going to add the y with the y. So now we're going to drop down this y cubed here to say this is negative 20y cubed. But now our like terms is what? Is negative 110 and negative 6. So you're going to say negative 110 minus 6. And the answer that you get is going to be how much? It's going to be negative 116y squared. So now you also have to add another like terms, which is this y and that y. So that is 20 minus 33. So the answer that we get is negative 13y. And then lastly, we have to drop down the constant. This is going to be plus 6. So this will be the solution to the problem. So now, you can have now a monomial multiplying with a binomial, but you have an addition in between the numbers. And then you also have a monomial and a binomial. So you also need to know how to simplify such kinds. Let's say, for example, we have 4x squared multiplied with 10x cubed plus 4. And then all this is added to what? To 4x cubed multiplied by 2x squared plus 6. So now what is happening is that we're going to apply the very same law to say now, if we have the brackets, we know we have multiplication. So what is outside here is going to multiply with everything inside. And then this sign here of positive, we're just going to drop it down. And then we're going to do the very same thing here to say now, this thing here will multiply with everything inside. So let us try to do that. We are going to say now, the 4x squared will multiply with the 10x cubed. And again, the 4x squared will multiply with the 4. So now, when you say 4 multiplied by 10, you are going to get the answer as 40. But now you have x squared multiplying with x cubed. So that is going to be x to the power of 5. So now if you have 4x squared multiplied with 4, what you're going to get is what? Is 4 multiplied by 4 is 16. So now you still have the x squared. So that is the first part. So now you have to move to the second part. But now you drop down the sign as it is. So if the sign is positive here, that means you can just put it as positive there. You don't have to put in the brackets. But if the sign was negative, you have to put in the brackets when you simplify this, because the sign here will multiply with the answer that you get. But if the answer or the sign is just positive, therefore the signs don't really matter. So now we're going to say now what is outside will multiply with what is inside. So the 4x cubed will multiply with the 2x squared. And then the 4x cubed again will multiply with the positive 6. So now 4x cubed multiplied by 2x squared. Remember, you're going to say 4 multiplied by 2. And that is going to give us 8. And then you have x cubed and x squared. That will be x to the power of 5. So now you're also going to say 4x cubed multiplied by 6. So now you just type 4 multiplied by 6. That will give us 24. And then you still have the x cubed there. After you do it, what is left is for you to do what? To add the like terms. So now you have to group your like terms. In this case, I can see now we have x to the power of 5 and x to the power of 5 there. And those are the only like terms we have. So we are just going to say what? 40 plus 8, that is going to give us 48. X to the power of 5. So normally what we do is that we group this starting with the highest exponent. So you see now we have 16x squared and then we have 24x cubed. So you're going to first start to write what? 24x cubed and end with the lowest exponent, which is 16x squared. But the sign is positive there, x squared. And this will be the solution to the problem. So but now, let's assume we still have the very same problem. But now what is happening is that instead of this thing here being a positive, is a negative. So it is very much important for you to understand that. So you will first look at the first part and multiply out. So after you multiply out, you are going to put now the negative sign. But now when you multiply the second part here, you multiply it without the negative sign. You have to put your answer into the bracket. And then now if your answer is into the bracket, therefore you're going to multiply with the negative x. I mean the negative sign. And therefore this will change to be what? This will change to be 40x to the power of 5 plus 16x squared. Now what is going to happen is that the negative will change this thing to be what? To be negative 8x to the power of 5. And the negative will change the sign to be what? To be negative 24x cubed. So it is very much important you look at the sign that you have there. But now remember, if you keep the sign here into the brackets, you must only multiply with what? You must multiply with 4 here because you have put the sign away. So now if you multiply with the negative 4 here, you don't have to put the brackets because the negative has already affected everything inside. That is very much important, and then you need to practice different ways and understand that on your own. So now we have to add the like terms. So remember now the like terms are going to be these ones here. So you're going to have 40 minus 8, and that is going to give us 32x to the power of 5. But remember, we have to group this starting with the highest exponent. So the x cubed is the highest, but now you move it with its sign. So this is going to be negative 24x cubed. And then we have this as positive 16x squared. So that is how you are going to solve that kind of a problem. So now lastly, let us look at if we have 3 brackets. And then in these 3 brackets, we have binomials. So let's say we have 3x plus 2 multiplied with 3x minus 2 multiplied with 9x squared minus 4. So now how do you go about this? So remember, I said if you have 2 multiplications in your problem, what you're going to do, you will multiply out the first what? The first multiplication. But remember, after you multiply this, you must put that into a bracket because it will also multiply with this part here. So now it will be wise for you to open your bracket before you can multiply out. So but now remember, when you multiply two brackets, you're going to say this will multiply with that and this will multiply with that. And then also you will say now, okay, 2 will multiply with this and 2 will multiply with that. So now let us do that. We are going to say now 3x multiplied by 3x, that is going to give us 9x squared. And then we're going to say 3x multiplied by negative 2, and that is going to give us negative 6x. So we're going to say now 2 multiplied by 3x, and that is going to give us positive 6x. Then we're going to say 2 multiplied by negative 2, that is going to give us negative 4. So after you multiply this first multiplication first, you're going to do what? You're going to close the bracket and open another bracket to multiply with another values, which is now 9x squared minus 4. So but first, before we do that, we can just add the like terms so that we simplify this so that we don't have big numbers. So now we can clearly see now we have negative x and positive negative 6x and positive 6x, which are going to cancel out and give us 0. So now this will simplify to be 9x squared minus 4. And then we still have another bracket, which is 9x squared minus 4. So now we just have what? The normal two brackets. So we do the very same procedure to say now, this number will multiply with the first number, and it will also multiply with the last number. And this value here will multiply with the first number, and it will also multiply with the last number. So now when we simplify this, we're going to say 9x squared multiplied by 9x squared. That is going to give us 81x to the power of 4. And then now if you say 9x squared multiplied by negative 4, that is going to give us what? That is going to give us negative 36x squared. And now when you say what? Negative 4 multiplied by 9x squared, that is also going to give us negative 36x squared. And then lastly, you say negative 4 multiplied by negative 4, and that will give us positive 16. So what is left is for us to add the like terms, and then we can see now we have negative 36 minus 36, of which they are going to add up. So now we're going to say that we have 81x to the power of 4, and then now negative 36 minus 36 is going to be how much? Is going to be negative 72x squared. And then we have our constant, so we're just going to drop it down to say we have positive 16. So that is how you simplify. Thank you very much.